Welcome to The Hill's Coronavirus Report. I'm Steve Clemons, editor-at-large of The Hill. Each day we are interviewing consequential leaders in the battle against the coronavirus. Pharmaceutical companies may be the game changer in the fight against the COVID-19. There's been a mad race to find a vaccine, with antivirals as well as treatment for those who are suffering the harshest impacts of the virus. There are clinical trials literally going on all over the world. COVID-19 often manifests in a lower respiratory tract inflammation, which often progresses to acute respiratory distress, and people die from that. The FDA has approved a phase 3 clinical trial that Vanda Pharmaceuticals has launched with a drug called tradipitant to address ARDS, Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome. This trial at Lenox Hospital in New York City will randomize about 300 patients with confirmed COVID-19 pneumonia. And Vanda is working on other parts of the COVID-19 challenge as well. Mihael Polymeropoulos is an MD who co-founded Washington, D.C.-based Vanda Pharmaceuticals. He joins me now to talk about what's on the horizon on that front. Mihael, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't we start with the news that you're really going after one of the key parts of the COVID story that is killing people at the end, and that's this respiratory distress. Tell us where you're at now as an important mid-cap company that has, as I understand it, the only phase 3 trial going on.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's fantastic to be with you and explain Vanda's efforts in the fight for COVID-19. As you said, there is a lot going on, a lot of people working very hard to figure out solutions and help with this catastrophic pandemic crisis. As you mentioned, COVID-19 is a very scary infection, primarily because we know that some people end up with acute respiratory failure and they die from the consequences of that infection. So what we're doing is we're trying to understand whether we can block this neuroinflammatory process that ends up in the collapse of the lung. Tradipitant is a neurokinin-1 receptor antagonist, a molecule that interrupts this neuroinflammatory pathway when it is initiated through substance P. So the idea here is that administering an antagonist in that pathway, tradipitant, will block the inflammatory process and hopefully early enough so that it does not result in the mechanical ventilation support of the patients and the high mortality rates that we've been seeing.
What have you been seeing? I know that these are under trials and I don't know the rules on what you can disclose, but is it promising?
I don't think we can say anything yet. The study just began last week at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. A few patients have been already randomized. And again, this is a double-blind study. It is placebo-controlled, meaning that on top of all the standard of care, half the patients are taking tradipitant and half are taking placebo. And this is in order to ensure that we have a good experiment. The good news is that hopefully we can enroll the study quickly and in the next 2 months, and soon thereafter we'll have the results. And again, we must try as a pharmaceutical industry a lot of solutions. Some of them will work, others won't. But we need to do good experiments and being able to either confirm or exclude a therapeutic.
Let me ask you the question. I know Vanda, and you're here in Washington, D.C., and I know you for something I want to get someday, which is a great jet lag pill. You've also worked on brain-related issues related to depression, schizophrenia, shock syndrome, and whatnot. How hard has it been to move your researchers and the various lines you have to deploy so much to COVID? I mean, is there a zero-sum game between there, or are you keeping everything else going at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, how come Vanda, a company that did not have a presence in antivirals, is actually in it, and is it in a big and comprehensive way? And that comes out of the conviction that as a pharmaceutical company, not only We need to develop drugs that can be helpful to people and hopefully commercially successful. But we have a sense at Vanda of social responsibility. And that is, we are a pharmaceutical company after all. And while all of us are locked up in our homes, and we hope that somebody is going to treat us and somebody is going to find a cure, employees of a pharmaceutical company, it is imperative that they jump in and try to do all they can. And that's exactly what we did at Vanda. Over the last month, we developed a comprehensive plan going after COVID-19. And we're looking at ways to interfere with the virus entry, the virus development and assembly inside the cell. And as we've been discussing in the last few minutes, with tradipitant in the Odyssey study to address the acute respiratory distress syndrome. The rest of the company is running as well. So what you're seeing here is rising to the occasion. Of course, a couple of the studies in atopic dermatitis and gastroparesis are going to move a little slower. Hopefully, will catch up. But we thought, as a pharmaceutical company, there is no option but actually jump into COVID-19.
You know, I've been looking at some of the other projects you have going on. One is an antiviral study that you're looking at, as I understand, at the University of Illinois in Chicago. Another is looking at genetic variations of the COVID disease and partnering with the University of Washington. In this, there's been a lot of complaints or a lot of criticisms of the pharmaceutical sector right now in the sense that it seems very chaotic and that the FDA, the government, has sort of created a chaotic mess. And I'd be interested in whether, as you're trying to carve out pieces of this, needles to push, if you will, is it chaotic? Should it be chaotic? Does the process need to move faster and be the way it is? Or do you need more order and discipline than you're getting today?
Right. It's hard for me to know what is chaotic and what is not. But I will say that we've seen the FDA being very cooperative, trying to accommodate all the projects and respond quickly. And I'll give you an example. Beyond the projects we're doing now, we're pursuing additional projects as well. And we've seen fantastic response in timing and willingness to collaborate. But I think there is an overarching need that we need to be very careful with. All of us hear about vaccines. We hear about an antiviral. We hear about the IL-6 inhibitors, and the studies are being done. We, as a scientific community in the industry, know very well that it's going to take a lot of different things to conquer the virus and conquer this disease. And we need to try them all. Past experience with difficult infections like HIV, AIDS have taught us that it takes a lot of strategies. You need to try them all, and they will evolve over time. So Vanda's approach of looking at many points in the evolution of the disease, we think it is the right thing to do. And we hope that the government can actually help us by encouraging these approaches. The solution is not going to be just a wonderful vaccine 12 to 18 months from now. Hopefully that happens and we never think about COVID-19 again. But the world is not perfect. And we're going to need antivirals. We're going to need them to be comprehensive. And we're going to need ways to help the people who are dying today. People are not dying just because the virus got inside their cells. They die of respiratory failure.
Mihael, one of the other things I know you've been concerned about is that we create inclusive approaches. And I think one of the outrageous impacts of COVID-19 is we've seen mortality rates among the African American community just surging off the charts and disproportionate to their portion of the population. I know you've been pushing to get more African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians into clinical trials. Is that happening? Is that happening not only on your front, but other fronts? Is that a blind spot in this process?
That is, a fantastic question. And I think underneath that is that we know different people are going to respond differently. We still have no idea why some people end up in the hospital and end up in the respirator. Some of them die. Others are asymptomatic. What causes that? It is the same virus after all. So we believe that there is a reason to look how people respond, not because of the disease burden and socioeconomic status, but also the wonderful differences in our genetic makeup that makes us a diverse people. But this is exactly where Calypso comes in. It is a project to uncover the genetic reasons of different responses to this infection. People are more likely or less likely to be infected. People are more likely to experience a severe disease or not. And there is a significant role for the government here. We hear a lot about the elderly with underlying conditions. We need to be careful generalizing. It is not just the elderly with underlying conditions. It is that this virus affects people in ways that we don't understand, and people respond in ways that we don't understand. What makes that response different, it is very important that we do not overgeneralize that it is just the elderly and it is just underlying conditions. It's going to be a lot more, and it's going to take a lot of work to figure it out.
You know, one of the things that Dr. Anthony Fauci has told me in past interviews that I've done with him, I interviewed Bill Frist, the former Senate Majority Leader, who was also a doctor, said the same thing. He says, look at the trillions of dollars that we're spending reacting to a virus now, and that for much less money, given over a period of time, we could possibly develop platform virus protection, platform vaccines that protected us against likely oncoming sets of viruses that are coming. And I'm interested as a scientist, whether you think that whether you have any confidence that that's something that we ought to begin thinking about to get us out of this reactive trap.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Fauci is a lot more versed to speak of what we need and what platforms we use. But I would urge caution to over-indexing the vaccines or over-indexing one specific platform that we should be using. I think we need to embrace the wonderful basic science that has been happening all over the world and not lose interest once an epidemic goes away. But it is very, very important to think in a holistic and comprehensive way what we need to do. For example, I've been looking at the testing that is happening now, and Rocky Mountain Labs, a lab of the NIAID, is testing new drugs in rhesus monkeys. It is very important to be careful with that too. Rhesus monkeys, to the account of the NIH employees, do not develop the same illness like humans.
Right.
In fact, recover in 14 days. So we need to make sure that we do not take a platform and keep repeating it just because we can do it. We have to focus on what people need.
Right. In our last minute, Mihael, I want to ask you really a political question. Maybe it's a medical answer. I don't know. There's a lot of tug of war going on in Washington right now about how we reopen society. As a doctor, as a scientist, where do you come on in that? Are there ways to reopen society and the economy responsibly now, or do you think we should be waiting a bit?
Yeah, of course, that is a big discussion. I think we should be doing everything we can to take fear away. People are afraid of death. They're not afraid of a cough or a fever or hurting and being at home. So we need to ensure we put a lot of emphasis to trying to see how we can decrease mortality right now. And then we have to be very careful as we reopen. We are reopening the gate to the virus, or we're reopening the economy. And we need to make sure people don't get hurt. Still, there's a lot to be learned about the transmission of the virus, how long we set the virus for, and listening to the scientific community at large, and I emphasize that at large, is going to be very important to get the right answers.
We'll just end it there. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for all for joining me for this update. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.